Addicts love the Lord. That's what I'm here today to talk to you about. I have a couple of examples I want to give you in this video, but basically the premise is I find it an interesting parallel, and it may be just these particular people that I know that have this problem, but I think it's not just the people that I know. I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there that don't have substance abuse issues and addiction issues, that are fully engaged in the church. But what I've noticed is I have a couple different people, and I'm going to go ahead and break them down. I won't use their names just to protect the guilty or the innocent, But so the first individual is, I'll just put out there, is my ex-wife, and this individual, and sometimes when people have ex-spouses or ex-significant others, they will, not always talk so favorably, but that's not the point of this video. This is just sort of the highlight or showcase what can happen to some people that have, addiction issues. So my ex-wife did have polysubstance abuse addiction issues, issues with alcohol and some other drugs, some hard drugs, but at some point in life, she grew up not being a believer in Christianity. And at some point in her early young adult life, after she had gone through a series of, doing drugs and everything, she found Jesus, and so she found the Lord, and then she got on the straight and narrow path, and then ever since she sort of had that kind of that belief system, and she still is holding on to those beliefs. Years later, we've been divorced for a number of years now, and talking with my son recently, he explained to me about her drinking that she still continues to do. And I just find it interesting how people think they're going to, quit drugs or this or that cold turkey, and they can just turn to the Lord or turn to Christianity, turn to the church, and it's going to help them, overcome their addiction issues. Now, I'm not going to say that no one has ever done that, but I think it's safe to say that most of the time people need serious drug counseling, or to really go in and address the issues that cause them to start doing drugs and becoming an addict in the first place. So that was one of the examples. It was just funny because she's very much thinks of herself as a Christian and as a religious person, and I'm not here to judge that person, but I'm just simply saying, if a person has the fruits of the Spirit, that we're supposed to see, their behavior is supposed to be Christ-like, and if they're obviously doing heavy drinking or this or that, then they're not really fully obviously engaged in the program. Or it's kind of like that analogy of well, how come God hasn't blessed me? Well, you're not praying hard enough, and the point of it is you can never pray hard enough. God probably doesn't exist, and that's why your prayers are unanswered, and that's why these things don't work out for you. But anyways, so what I was trying to say was some Christians out there might say, well, maybe she just really isn't truly of the Lord and really isn't truly seeking the Lord in her life and that sort of thing. And I guess, but I tend to doubt that's the case. So let me segue into my next individual. The next individual is a kind of a longtime friend that I parted ways with because of the individual's life. It just wasn't a good thing for me to be around, and there's just some people that you might have been friends with, say, when you were younger, that as we age and we get older, we realize that the person's just not a real good influence and probably isn't someone that we should keep in our life. So this individual had issues with crime, had gotten arrested, been in jail a number of times, and was also having issues with drugs, and at one point decided to turn to the church, like a lot of people do, because they recognize, say, hey, I've got a problem, I've got to change the way I'm living or whatever. And so that's what he was trying to do. And so he went to church for a period of time, and now I know Christians will say, well, maybe he needed to stick with it or this or that, but I recently found out that now he's back on the sauce, and that now he's back into the drugs, because what I believe the reason this is, why he's relapsed, is because Christianity and religion is not an adequate drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. Now, I know many Christians out there will say, oh, I've had an uncle, or I've had a brother, or I've had somebody that they prayed the alcoholism out of them or whatever. I wouldn't believe it, because they have 12-step programs. They have things that you got to go through. There's intensive therapy, there's drug and alcohol rehabilitation that you have to go through. So you can't just show up at a church one day and just pray your sickness away. It doesn't work like that. I understand many Christians that may watch this may say, "Oh yeah, absolutely, you can. Prayer really does work, and you can lay hands on someone, and you can, and their cancer or their alcoholism or drug addiction is in remission." Well, I don't believe it will be for very long, and I don't even think it's very genuine, and that's why it won't be very lasting or permanent, because I don't believe that prayer works. And that's not really the point of this video. I'm not here to bash prayer, but what I'm here to say is I think it's just an interesting parallel. Interesting that people that suffer from addiction issues and how they're drawn to the church, and how it shows that the reason that they don't really ever fully overcome their addiction issues is not because they don't seek the Lord hard enough in their life, or they don't read their Bible enough, or they're not into the Word, or they're not going to Bible groups, cell groups or whatever. None of that stuff. That's not the reason why. The reason why is because something as serious as an addiction, whatever it is, isn't just going to be able to be prayed away. It doesn't go away like the idea of like praying the gay away. When someone's gay, we'll just lay hands on you and pray over you, and you'll stop being gay. It doesn't happen like that. I think there's been any successfully documented cases of someone that was a homosexual, and then someone prayed over them, and then their gayness was in remission for the rest of their life. No, people usually relapse, and now because the relapse, Christians might also respond to that, like say an addiction or something like that, relapsing, is the dog always returns to the vomit, and they'll say that's scriptural. Well, yeah, people do return back to their old ways because they've not found a way to successfully overcome the reasons and the causes for them doing it in the first place. That's not been addressed. That's the reason why. Not that they don't pray hard enough, or that they don't truly love the Lord, or any of that stuff. It's just that they're not really getting the help that they need to overcome, to address the issues that caused them to become addicts in the first freaking place. Anyways, so the other example I wanted to use was a close friend of mine also has the same kind of situation. He has tried smoking marijuana. He's tried drinking, and at one point he got very much into drinking alcohol as a way to cope, because the guy, is a decent human being, and probably all these people are, decent human beings that I've mentioned, but he, has struggled with substance abuse, and he's used it as a way to cope because, he doesn't really want to go to counseling, doesn't want to talk. So this is his way of sort of coping. But he also is someone that's been very much into religion, and he's telling me the other day that he loves to read the Word, and he loves, and he really gets a lot out of it, and he likes to go to church because, the fellowship and the, and I think there's something to be said about that, and, also the accountability of holding one another responsible for their, for their behavior, and walking, the walk, and if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk, and so he likes that, likes the fact that, he's among other believers that, that hold him accountable, but he's back drinking again. And why is that? Because he has addiction issues that are not being addressed. The causation, the reasons why he turns to alcohol or drugs to try to help him cope, is not being addressed by the church. It's not being addressed by God. Why is that? Is it that God does exist and God just doesn't care and doesn't want to cure these people of their addictions? No, of course not. I don't think that's it. I think the best explanation is God doesn't exist, and that's why nothing's happening. That's why these people, in their mind, they imagine their imaginary friend is supposed to be there helping him. And I think in some ways it probably is therapeutic when you imagine or you make up this God that exists that you can pray to and this and that. But if he really truly existed, why isn't he helping these people get over their addictions? If it was that simple, if you could just pray the addiction away, so many people would be off drugs. But that's not what happens. And the reason it doesn't happen, most likely, because they're praying and their prayers are going nowhere and it doesn't exist. And secondly, and most importantly, you're trying to apply an inappropriate treatment plan to someone that really needs, maybe they need an intensive in-house stay at a rehabilitation place to address the, metaphorically I'm using this, the demons that haunt them or whatever. I don't think that they're really demon possessed or anything like that, but so I think what I'm trying to show in this video is that people that that have issues and that go to the church, it's interesting that those are the kind of people that will go to church, are those, and that's true. The Bible says, bring me your heavy burden laden or whatever, the sick, they're the ones that need a doctor, so of course they're going to go to church. But there are also plenty of other people that aren't sick, at least not with addiction issues, that go to church. And, so I wanted to point out that I'm not saying that everyone that goes to church is an addict. No, but it's interesting how it's attractive to them. And you get why it is attractive to people with addiction issues because it's a place where they're told that they can go and get help. Do people really get lasting help? I tend to doubt that. Maybe are there these outliers, these one-offs that maybe somehow they're able to get a hold of their addiction issue and go cold turkey? Maybe. But I think the majority of people end up relapsing. And the question of why they relapse, the Christian would respond to and say the explanation is, oh, they relapse because, they love their sin more, or because they love their addiction more than they love the Lord. And that's the reason why I'm like, oh, that probably makes an addict feel really great. Lay some more guilt trips on them, and then they're going to want to drink, or they're going to want to do drugs to escape the guilt and shame of the life that they already live, and you're just making it worse. But that's kind of how the religious handle addiction issues, and I don't think that going to church is the most adequate. It's certainly probably better than doing nothing. But I think the reason it doesn't work is because God probably most likely doesn't exist, and there's nothing really happening, and this person is really just doing it on their own, and that's why we see them relapse, and that's why they go back. Again, I'm making assertions here, but the point of the video, I'll go ahead and close with this, was just that I saw how interesting that these people that I know, and I'm sure there's plenty of others, how people with addiction issues, how they're drawn to the church, and how they try to do that, and then they find that it's not enough. It doesn't fulfill them enough. It doesn't sustain them enough because it's just not the right kind of like when you need a tourniquet. Don't apply a bandage or a band-aid when you need a tourniquet. Apply, and so I'm not going to say, well, God's not powerful enough. He couldn't help these people overcome their addiction issues. Well, it appears not. If they're relapsing and they're going back and they're not staying clean and they're having a problem, then probably Christ and probably the church isn't probably the answer. You can't just pray all your problems away. There are times in which people have significant mental health issues that they really need to be seen by a professional and not treated by, say, some pastor at a church. Thanks for watching the video. We'll see you next time. Take care.